All right, Coach. Welcome to the Collective Good.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Really appreciate you coming on. It means a lot that you would do this. And we're in your awesome ultimate Buckeye basement. I figured it would be that, but you've got some really cool bobbleheads back here. What's the story on that?
Well, that's the bunch of the guys on the national championship team. Someone made those bobbleheads with the ring at the base, and so that's a group of those guys, and so we've probably got, let's say, 60% Ohio State down here, and probably 30% Youngstown State, and then you're sitting in a Miami chair, and
Yep.
I'm in a Baldwin Wallace chair, and Syracuse and Akron. I can't leave out any of the places that I was blessed to have a chance to get an opportunity, and so we've got 88 balls up there.
You got a lot of stuff. It's great.
We asked the guy, we said, what are we going to do with all these boxes of balls? And he said, I got an idea. So he put up those little dowel rods, and the question will be, what will I do with all this junk? Because the kids don't want all this stuff, and so we've been slowly giving it away for auctions and things like that. And,
That's great.
And but anyway, we have fun down here, and we just had a James Cancer Hospital fundraiser here, and they had the cocktail hour down here, and then we had the barbecue in the backyard, and so it's multi-purpose.
Yeah, that's very good. So I like to start with kind of the backstory of anyone that I have on the podcast. So tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up for you. Where did you grow up? What was your family like when you were coming up?
Well, I was born in Paynesville, Ohio, when my father was the head coach at Mentor High School. So I don't remember much about Mentor because we left when I was about 3, and he became the head coach at Massillon High School. And I have, over the course of years, heard a lot from the guys that played for my dad. And I know my mom and dad used to always talk about what a great time they had there. They had great teams. In fact, I ran into a guy recently that from grades 7 through 12, they never lost a game. And
that's insane.
Insane, right? And when he left, he had 34 straight wins going at Mentor, and so I've heard a lot from. In fact, Mentor this fall has a 100-year anniversary of their football program going on, and
That's cool.
And they're having a big hoopla, and so Mentor was a great place for my parents and my 2 older brothers. I don't remember much about it. Then we went to Massillon, and so I remember just a little bit about it, and I remember that the Massillon-McKinley game was very important.
Mm-hmm.
I remember our first year there, we didn't win that game.
Okay.
And there was garbage in our yard, and my dad was hung from a tree in effigy. And
No way.
I mean, it was serious stuff.
And how old were you then? Do you remember?
I was 4 when we lost. I was 5, just getting ready to be 5, or I think I was 5 the second year when we beat them. So I could tell the difference between winning the rival game and not at an early age. And then we went on to Berea, Ohio, where my dad was the head coach and athletic director of Baldwin Wallace for 23 years. And
Wow.
that's where I grew up, and went to Berea High School and went to Baldwin Wallace, and then headed off into my professional career.
So football was obviously an important part of your family. When did you personally feel connected to it? Was it sort of just always part of your life, or did you have a seminal moment where you decided, I want to make football my thing?
It's funny. It's so different than today. We didn't have youth football. We didn't play football till 8th grade.
Yeah. Same.
And,
well, I wasn't allowed to play until I was in 6th grade, but same thing.
We didn't even have it, let alone be allowed.
Yeah.
And so the interest we had was a genuine interest playing out in the yard. And we just had fun playing it and emulated the Cleveland Browns and Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets and the Ohio State Buckeyes. And football wasn't on TV much back then. Prior to 1983, and I grew up way before 83, football, a college team could only be on TV 5 times every 2 years. It was regulated.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then it was deregulated in 83 going into 84. And so it's so different than today, where there's so much organized, push Johnny into playing it.
Yeah.
We just enjoyed playing it, and so we played in junior high. Back then, they had junior highs and not middle schools.
Yeah.
And then enjoyed playing it in high school and played for my dad at Baldwin Wallace. And I think by the middle of my college career, I decided that education was what I wanted to do, and I wanted to coach, and so that was probably, I think I'd set my goal really to be a high school head coach and teach math and live happily ever after, and so I went on to grad school and thinking, well, I'll get my master's so I can, get going here, and so I applied for a whole bunch of high school jobs while I was in graduate school and didn't have any luck. But fortunately, Jim Dennison, who was our head coach at the University of Akron, we had someone leave the staff, and he said, well, why don't you consider staying in college coaching? And I said, well, okay, I'll try it. And
oh, thank God he asked
no,
you for that. What do you think about those sort of seminal moments in life where those kinds of decisions happen that almost feel like they happen to you or for you? When you look back on those moments that are sort of benchmarks for you, what are the things that stick out? What were the moments that were most impactful that sort of that synchronicity happened?
Really, it's all about the people who you're lucky enough to be around. When I was coming out of college, I sent about 100 letters out to universities to be a graduate student, get my master's out of the way, learn a little bit about coaching, and then go on and teach high school and so forth. I got 3 letters back out of those 100. One was from Stanford, and I thought that was a little too far. One was from Penn State, so I interviewed with Joe Paterno at Penn State, and then one was at the University of Akron. And Akron at the time was Division II, and Baldwin Wallace was Division III. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And so I interviewed there, and I was impressed. Coach Dennison was amazing. And then we went to Penn State, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
They were practicing for a bowl game. They had an indoor practice field, Orange Bowl trophies, Heisman trophies. I was just blown away.
Yeah.
And we were riding home, and I said to my dad, well, Dad, Coach Paterno offered me a job. I'm going to go. He said, no, you're not. I said, well, what do you mean? Look at that. It was unbelievable. He said, no, you're going to Akron.
Huh.
And so then there was silence for about 6 hours on the way home, and I took one more run at it the next morning. Said, Dad, I was slept on it, and I really think I'm going to Penn State. And he said, no, you're not. You're going to Akron. And I said, why do you think that? He said, they only have 4 coaches, and you'll be the only graduate coach. He said, at Penn State, they had like 20 coaches running around. You won't get to do anything. He said, there's nothing more valuable than responsibility. So
Boy, that's good advice.
Thank goodness, because
Yeah.
8 months later, I was on the full-time staff, and so being around, lucky enough to have a father who had wisdom and wasn't all caught up in the glitz, right?
Yeah.
And then having a coach like Jim Dennison to start under was fabulous. And Tom Reed, who was the head coach at Miami, happened to be good friends with Jim Dennison, and he was looking for a coach. And Jim said, well, you might want to consider, Jim, me. And so all of a sudden I'm at Miami, and I didn't know Tom Reed. And then Dick McPherson got the Syracuse job a few years later, and I had recruited the area and had stopped into the Browns building a couple times, and Coach McPherson was coming from the Cleveland Browns, and he said, hey, I need someone that can recruit Ohio. So all of a sudden I wake up, I'm at Syracuse. And then Earl called me one night. I had never met Earl in my life. And he said, I've been all over Northeast Ohio, and every recruit we're after is considering Syracuse. That's never happened before. And so
You were doing a good job.
I want you to recruit for us. And our quarterback coach left, and so forth. So you have to be lucky to be around, people who can make a difference.
Yeah.
And it's that's why who you get to know, who you study from, who you learn from, who you get to mentor you, is so critical.
Mentorship seems like an important part of your life, giving and getting mentorship. Why is that important to you? Why do you care about breathing life into people?
Well, you can learn a lot from your own experiences, but you don't have time to learn everything. And so the more you can learn from others, especially those who have done it, that's why you spend as much time as you can around really good people. That's why you spend as much time as you can reading really good books.
Yeah.
Because you don't have time to learn everything trial and error. And you don't just learn from people's successes, you learn from people's challenges. And all of a sudden, when you start studying people, you find out that, man, I thought this person had the perfect life. And oh my gosh, what they went through. I mean, how many businesses have you seen that the person talked about, well, we were bankrupt, then we came out of it, and then we were bankrupt, and then we came out of it. Heck, we just thought it was a great business.
Yeah.
But so learning from others is critical.
One of the things that I think is really cool about the way that you conduct yourself is how connected you stay to the players who gave a lot to you and who you obviously gave a lot to as well. Talk about what those relationships are like that you build. Football is somehow a real sort of crucible for relationships. It does a lot to create a deep bond. For people who aren't familiar with football, never played, what is it about that game in particular that builds those kinds of deep relationships?
I think it's because it's so hard, and so much of it is not success. So much of it you're getting knocked down. So much of it you're third string. So much of it you're toiling to try to build something. I think it's so much fun to keep track of your guys because, A, that's our greatest victories. Everyone wants to point to a victory over Michigan or a championship or whatever, but really our greatest victories are watching what our guys are doing today and to see that, you know what, they were young, they had to learn lessons. We weren't perfect by any means, but we learned.
Yeah.
And when you learn together and you go through hard times together, that's what creates close relationships. When everything's pretty easy, you're just setting yourself up for some not so good things to happen because life's not easy.
Yeah.
Stuff happens. And so it's fun to watch our guys go through their football career, their academic career, and then as they go out into their professional career, maybe it's in the NFL for a while, maybe not. Just last night I had dinner with Andrew Moses, who was from Columbus Watterson, walked on, earned a scholarship, even started a couple games for us, and he's an attorney downtown Cleveland with Sherwin-Williams. They're expecting their second child. And
Awesome.
But it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have gone maybe somewhere that he would have played right away and things would have been wonderful, but he had to toil through odds that weren't great. And that's what made him be ready for law school. That's what made him be ready for the challenges in a Fortune 200 company like
Right.
Sherwin-Williams. And so, that's why it's fun to have those guys have that experience. Football's the greatest game of all, I think, for two reasons. One is because there's so many people involved. Offense, defense,
Yeah.
special teams, trainers, managers, strength coaches, fans, marching band. I mean, you name it. There are just thousands of people involved in that game. It's so complex and it's so hard because it's not all going to go the way you want in the course of a game, in the course of a season, in the course of a career. And that's great training.
That's really good advice. Something comes to mind, which is you see all these videos of the stories of walk-ons who have worked really hard, and then the coach will give them a scholarship, and then all the players are just like really excited for that guy. What is it about? So you just mentioned a walk-on. What is it about those guys that maybe they're not touted as the top level talent who are coming in, but then when they earn a spot, it energizes the other players. What is that? What's happening there, do you think?
I think people appreciate those that beat the odds. I think they appreciate people that started from scratch. I think they appreciate people who had the courage, to see if they could contribute at a level that conventional thinking was no one recruited them at that level.
Yeah.
So, conventional thinking was they were probably not that level of player. And what it was that got them to that stage, that's what people don't understand. They see the video of the guy getting the scholarship and they thought, oh, Tinkerbell came down and gave him a scholarship. No.
Yeah.
What went in to that person earning that was incredible.
Right.
And the guys can see that.
Yeah. Are there any particular stories that stick out to you that were very impactful for you to watch of young men and the way that being part of a team that you were coaching impacted their lives?
Well, one of the ones that is I think well known is Nate Ebner's story. Nate didn't play high school football. He was a youth rugby player, and then he had a tragedy while he was just a student at Ohio State, and lost his father and walked on the team and ended up getting drafted in, I don't know, the 6th round and didn't even play a position other than special teams.
Huh.
And played 10 years in the NFL and won 3 Super Bowls and just every time you're around him, he oozes with gratitude. He doesn't ooze with, look at me, didn't I do something wonderful? So that's an unusual story to go from never playing high school football
really.
to playing at Ohio State to
Yeah.
being drafted in the NFL to winning 3 Super Bowls to being all pro. And at the same time, he went to the Olympics in 2016 in rugby.
So cool.
So he was he's about as unusual a Walter Mitty story as you can possibly get, and
awesome.
He continues to go out and impact. He just one of our former players is a coach of one of the national teams in Israel, and I was talking with him, and obviously they're going through some really tough times, and
Right.
the kids that he's coaching are serving the military during the day, and then at nighttime coming and wanting to play
my
on the
goodness.
national football team and
Wow.
not lose their lifestyle, amidst the chaos. And I was talking to my young guy, John Tikak, who was a good player for us at Youngstown State, and he said, "Hey, I saw your podcast on Nate Ebner." He said, "What a story!" And he said, do you think there's any way Nate could say hello to my team?" And so called Nate. Of course he did, and John Tikak said it was the most impactful 20 minutes that these young people have had in over a year.
Wow.
And so his uniqueness continues, in his life.
What do you think that magic is? There is a certain spark in some people that is maybe undefinable, but I think a coach has a unique insight into what drives folks who have that sort of next level engine. What do you think that is?
Take a guy like Nate. I think it starts with his selfless attitude, and most of the people that reach their potential, and we all have a lot more potential than we think, right?
Yeah,
but
man.
very few people reach it. And I think the people that do are the ones that are selfless and realize that it's not about them, and they're gonna absorb everything they can, wisdom-wise, knowledge-wise, example-wise. They're head's always going to be on a swivel because they know it's not about them, and they know they need to learn from others and see where they can help others. And then the other part of it is the ones that I think have that magic are the ones that are grateful, for any opportunity they get, and they're not of the ilk that they think they're deserved things. They're just grateful when they wake up in the morning and oxygen was provided. They think that way.
Yeah.
And obviously they have a great work ethic and passion and all those things. But I think that selflessness and that gratitude is what is the differential.
Yeah.
With the great ones.
It's beautiful. So you mentioned the Olympics. Football is going to be in the Olympics here in the next time in LA. Flag football, which is an interesting idea. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think about flag football being in the Olympics?
Well, I think flag football, especially on the female side, is really getting popular.
Mhm.
Uh, there's nothing wrong with flag football. I mean, it's fine. It's not the American football,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
and the Olympics is full of sports that you,
yeah,
you just are a little bit unusual. Not an overarching number of people do them.
yeah,
They're specialists.
right.
But there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a believer that any team activity. We had 9 engineering teams at Youngstown State. Those kids gained the same value from being on the Baja race team
Mm,
as the kids on the football team.
mm,
Uh, you have ensembles in your music school. Those people that are on that group activity gain the same thing as the football team does. So
mm.
anything that we can do, that's why our podcast is called It's All About the Team, because everyone wants to talk about leadership and all those things. Leadership sometimes is a reflection on, well, what can I do to enhance my world?
Yeah,
And whether it's flag football teams or engineering teams or ensembles or football teams, that's what can we do to enhance the group?
mm,
And to me, that's the value of it. So, I mean, I wouldn't care if they had 500 sports in the Olympics.
yeah.
Anything that is a group activity, I think is valuable.
That's great. I have to ask you, you're well known for wearing sweater vests. I'm so curious, where did that start? Did someone give you a sweater vest? How did that come to be sort of your identity on the sideline?
Well, when we got to Ohio State, we were meeting with the people from Nike, and they were saying, "Well, what do you wear on the sideline?" And I said, "I don't know." What do you mean? They said, "Well, what did you normally wear on the side?" And I said, "Well, at Youngstown State, we played a lot of night games, so it was a little chilly. And so I don't like being cold, So if I had a coaching shirt on and it was a little chilly, I'd put a sweater vest over it. And we went to Penny's and got a sweater vest and put a Y on it. And, I mean, that's what I wear." They said, "You're wearing a sweater vest." And I said, "Well, whatever. I don't care what I wear."
Yeah.
Well, we get to the start of the season, and it's like 90 degrees on a noon kickoff, in August 31st or something. And
I'm hot.
equipment guy says, "Well, you have to wear this sweater vest." Are you kidding me? I said, "I told him I wore a sweater vest because it was chilly."
Yeah.
No, we agreed to that. And
Huh.
so I wore a sweater vest every game except one.
Hmm.
And it was a 90-some degree game. Early, I think it was in '02. We had played Texas Tech in that kickoff classic, which was a pre-bowl game.
Yeah.
Then I think, and that was like, I forget how hot, and I was dying in that sweater vest, and
Yeah.
I kind of rebelled, and I wore a Oxford shirt with an Ohio State insignia, thinking, well, this will be fine. I got into a little bit of hot water there.
Yeah.
So that was the last game that I wore anything other than a sweater vest. And now when it got real cold, no one could see the sweater vest because I was going to put on a coat.
Yeah.
But I held up to the contract. I wore a sweater vest.
That's hilarious. I love that story. So, okay, I want to hear another story. So, take us back to the moment where you're standing in the wings at St. John Arena as you're about to come out to announce, your coaching at Ohio State. Obviously, a really important moment for you personally, but also for the program. And you came out and gave one of the most inspiring speeches that I've ever heard. I've seen it so many times since. I remember as an alum of Ohio State hearing the passion behind what you were saying, and I was just like, I was pumped. And I wonder what that felt like to be standing there in that moment, to know that you had basically a whole state and all the alumni sort of looking at you, and you're coming out and you're wanting to instill that passion, that excitement, that hope. What was that moment like for you? And talk a little bit about that experience.
Well, that weekend was a little bit of a whirlwind. We just got there, and they said, "Hey, we're going to go over to the basketball game, and at halftime they're going to introduce you. You can wave to the crowd." And And I said, okay, but I got to get recruiting. I got a lot of things. They said, yeah, no problem. So it gets to halftime. We walk out there. I'm thinking, well, there's like 20,000 people here. Maybe 1,000 know who the heck I am. So whatever, this will be easy. I'll just wave, and I'm sure they'll be polite. And so we go out there, and they introduce me. I wave, and then all of a sudden they hand me the microphone.
Yeah.
So, whoa, I didn't know they were handing me a microphone.
Oh, so you had no idea you were going to talk?
No,
Wow.
I thought, oh.
So you came up with that on the spot?
Well, I paused for a moment thinking, well, they don't know who I am, but I want them to know that I know what they want. And so, I wanted them, and I wanted our team to hear that I knew what they wanted, because they were a little tired of what was going on in the rivalry game, and our fans were as well, and so I just wanted to let them all know that I knew, and I didn't promise anything,
right?
Other than they'd be
They'd
proud
be
of
proud.
them,
Yeah, I remember that.
But obviously, it was spun into, Babe Ruth calling the shot or something like that, But yeah, it was just, I figured, well, I might as well let them know that I feel them. And so that's what we did.
What is the power of hope? There is something, my experience, I grew up playing sports, was a football player. I was always most inspired when I knew that a coach believed that I could do something, even if maybe I didn't believe I could do it myself. Moments like what you're talking about, to me, that's what you're providing. You're giving hope. What is it about that motivates people so deeply to do things that they didn't even know they could?
I think if you, I guess, offer the thought that there's hope, okay, then you're going to be closely scrutinized to see if there's any validity to this hope you're extending, right? And so hope can last a long time. It can last a short time, right? And the strongest of the people can hold on to hope without any proof because they just feel it, and there's something spiritually in them and others, hope only lasts as long as the next thing that happens that might point to the fact that, well, I knew we didn't have any hope. I knew we didn't have a chance. So, like anything else, I'm sure there's degrees of hope, but I think letting people know that there is a plan for hope, there's a plan for it. Now it's up to them to, they're free to evaluate how's the plan going, and let's face it, after 10 games in that first year, we were 6-4, 6-4, and I'm sure there wasn't as much confidence in that hope, maybe as there was that day back in January.
Yeah.
When the hope was presented.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, fortunate for us, our guys believed in that hope, and maybe more so than people on the periphery, but they were there every day. They got to see a little bit of growth. They got to see a little bit of progress, but it still wasn't guaranteed. And fortunately for us, we had a successful day in that first, that 310th day.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now the hope was stronger.
Yeah.
Right? Amongst the team, amongst the fans, amongst the, everyone. But like anything else, you still then have to go the next day and prove that you're following the plan that leads to that hope. And that's why the whole process, whether it's the process of life or the process of your program or process of your team is so important, is because people love to think things just happen. they don't just happen.
Right.
There's a process.
So it occurs to me too that you are a high accountability guy. You expect a lot out of yourself and out of the people that you're close to, your teammates, whatever it is. What role do you think accountability plays in success? I mean, in my life, I think it's so much of, hope is one thing. It inspires you, but then staying accountable to the whatever it is that you're trying to get to that's the secret sauce. Every day you have to stay accountable to that. Talk about what accountability has meant to you in your life.
I think that the accountability really is the indication of how much you really want that hope to come true. You know, we used to always say that goals create energy, which is like saying goals create accountability.
Yeah.
Right. And so how deeply do you believe in those goals? How important is that to you? And that, to me, then will indicate your accountability level. And so we always believed that we would have a lot better chance in our people reaching their potential, reaching their goals, if they knew that they were the ones that set them. Sometimes when people set goals for you and then they want you to be accountable, it's like, well,
Yeah.
that wasn't even my goal. I
Right.
mean, you said I should want that, but I didn't say I wanted that.
Yeah.
And so making sure that our guys, we wanted them to really be reflective. That's why we spent a lot of time on goal setting. We always thought that if nothing else, if they learned how to set goals, create plans to accomplish them, then it was a good time spent being in our program. And that's, to me, a little bit of that definition of accountability. But it still comes down to, how important, a guy might put on his goal sheet, I want to go to med school, and then he misses biology class. Well,
Yeah.
you're not going to med school.
Yeah.
So you didn't really, you weren't dying to go to med school.
Yeah.
You just put that down because you thought we'd like that goal. Many people, when they talk about their goals or the things they'd like to do, author them with the idea of what you might want to hear as opposed to what deeply they wanted. If it's something they want deeply, they'll naturally be accountable because it's important to them.
Yeah.
And that's, that's why people ask all the time about the 2002 team. Well, they had suffered so much. 99, they were 6-6. 2000, they were 8-4. They lost their coach. They had to get a whole new coaching staff, which is hard on players.
Right.
That's hard on players. Then they're 7-5. It's like, oh my gosh, I did not come to Ohio State to live through this.
Yeah.
I watched Eddie George and the 98 team and the 95 team and that's why I came to Ohio State.
Yeah.
And it wasn't happening. And sometimes that passion to achieve, to realize your goals, there has to be a little bit of you growing to understand how important it is or how maybe not important. Some people, hey, I'm at Ohio State, I'm playing, who cares? I don't care, but that's why that team was so different. That's why the 2014 team, I thought, was so different because, so many of those older guys in that team went through the same kind of thing. Staff transition, didn't get to play in a bowl game.
Yeah.
Had fallen short. They lost their quarterback early in the season. Then they lost another quarterback. They went through so much.
Yeah.
Well, of course, that's why they were ready to handle anything coming their way, as opposed to things going, a little bit too easy. And so accountability can be impacted by challenges.
And I think I have found in my own life, and maybe you would say the same thing, that those deepest valleys are the moments where I have learned the most.
Oh, absolutely. We learn way more from a loss than a victory.
Right.
a victory. The only thing we learned from that is probably inaccurate. That we're wonderful and we figured it out and no one can beat us and it's always going to be this way. I mean, that's the worst kind of thing to learn, right?
Yeah.
And that's why sustained success is so hard. I mean, that's difficult. I mean, that is. I remember each year as we were going along that we beat Michigan, and then we beat Michigan, we beat Michigan. All of a sudden, we beat them like 5 times in a row, and I was petrified that our guys wouldn't understand that how hard it is. And the minute you think, well, we got this, you're done.
Yeah, that's the death blow, isn't it?
Right.
What is that? Why? I guess complacency.
It's human. Yeah, it's human nature.
Yeah.
Once you have to decide to be either curious as to how I can get better, no matter how well things are going or how bad they're going. But if you always remain curious to how can I get better, versus become complacent. Now that fine line is you want to be, you don't want to live life paranoid. So
Right.
you want to be happy enough, be pleased enough to be, happy, but not so pleased that you're complacent. And when does it, or not so pleased that, you're not going to try to find better ways to do it because the opponents are.
Right.
They're finding a way. And oh my gosh, we just lost to them 5 straight times. We're studying every single thing we can. And, so sustain, we used to say that the test of greatness, the hallmark of excellence is consistency. Anybody can have an occasional, success moment. And sometimes it wasn't even because they did anything great, but the other guys messed up or it just kind of fell in their lap, But who can do it consistently? And that's the fun of it.
Well, I think you did, which is great, and credit to you. I wonder what you hope your legacy will be 50, 100 years from now when people are looking back on who you are, and not just the things that you've done, but the person that you are, the legacy that you've left. What do you hope that is?
I think there are a variety of legacies. The most important one to me is the ones of the people that you actually spent time with and you served. That legacy is the one that's the most important. Your own family, the people you work closely with, the people that, you impacted and they impacted you and they were a part of your life. That's legacy, is I hope they know how much I loved them, how much that whatever I told them I would try to do, I did, that they could count on me, et cetera, because, we had time together. Then that word legacy gets used a lot more for a bigger population of people who never spent a minute with you, right? And it was, the government person is now they're working on their legacy. Well, no one ever met them. What do you mean their legacy? I mean, we don't even know what someone goes through in the course of a day.
Sure.
We only know what someone else might write or someone else might say or whatever. So the legacy you have with someone you've never been around, that doesn't really concern me. Now, the group in the middle, that's kind of like you weren't intimately involved, and it wasn't like there was zero interaction, but there was they were a part of your life in some ways, even though they weren't a part of your life.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way why it was so much fun when we won in 2002, just to see all those people that have been waiting 34 years, that, and to get the letters from them, like I can die now, my Bucks have finally won it again, and so you weren't really with them, but you were kind of
But
connected.
they were with you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You weren't with them physically.
Right.
Okay. But they were with you spiritually.
Yeah.
And so that group, you have a little closer, and you hope that you brought joy. Not much else you could do.
Yeah.
Because you're not really with them. So this group that you're with every day, they're better there better be a love there and appreciation, and you hope you served them well. This group, you hope you made a difference, even from afar.
Yeah.
This group, who cares?
Well, I can tell you the people that I know that have been close to you, they speak so highly of you. So in my experience, in the small group of people that I know that have been in your life, they have so much respect for you. And I know I got to watch you sort of a frontline view of some stuff that you were doing at the Ronald McDonald House when I was working there, and you just made such a positive impact on not only me but the people around us and the mission that we were doing. So I think that you've done that. And
One of the goals that we had for our young people was to make sure that they were grateful for what they were blessed to be able to do, which was to be an Ohio State Buckeye, play the great game of football, get a college education. Oh my gosh, you're so blessed.
Yeah.
With those blessings goes a responsibility to see where you can serve others. You have a unique opportunity when you wear that jersey, and so being around things like Ronald McDonald House and the Second and Seven, reading program with Ryan Miller and Luke and Mike Vrabel and those guys, all those things, James Cancer Hospital, you can name 1,000 of them, that we wanted our guys to really feel as if they had a responsibility with all the blessings they have to go help where they can help. Now, there's correct doses for everything.
Yeah.
You can't do that instead of studying. You still need to go. You can't do that instead of, training.
Yeah.
But can you find a place in your schedule and hopefully for the rest of your life, not just go live in a community and eat at the restaurants, but how about live in the community and get involved in the causes? And that was very important for our guys to experience. Not that they hadn't coming in. There was a variety. Some of them, their families were very involved in that. Some of them hadn't experienced that.
Yeah.
All of them enjoyed it when they did it. It was very enjoyable to them, especially the ones that had never experienced something like that, making a difference in someone else's life that, can never repay you and you may never see again. Who cares? But that warm feeling that you did that, and we wanted that to be a part of our guys' total experience.
I think you did a good job of that. I mean, I vividly remember all kinds of different situations where student athletes from Ohio State were heavily involved in the community, doing work to make a difference in the off season and raising awareness and all of that, doing all the right things.
Yep.
And it means a lot to me that you'd be willing to come on The Collective Good and talk a little bit about your own life. Thank you for doing this.
It's my pleasure.
Appreciate it very much. It's good to talk to you, and best of luck with everything.
Well, thanks for spreading kind of the good news. I think we are what we read or what we hear or listen to.
Yeah.
What we learn, we become that.
Yeah.
And I think having conversation with a variety of different people from different backgrounds, and I'm a believer, whether it's reading a book or watching a podcast, if I can get one or two things that, are like reinforce what I believe, maybe, hey, okay, I think I'm on the right path, or, you know what, I need to get a little more involved in this or that. That's good for the collective good.
Amen. Thank you so much, Coach.
Yes, sir. My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Yep, sir.